Konnichiwa. I am currently in Arima Onsen, which is in the mountains north of Kobe, taking a little break from my 3-week tour of Japan to record a little video to talk about the announcement of the new Flesh and Blood set, and of course the Japanese release of Flesh and Blood. So this is of course serendipitous. I did not plan my trip to Japan to be able to talk about the news of the launch in Japan. I was coming here anyway. Look, you can have a bit of a view of my room, as well as sort of the view from the chair where I'm sitting, which is of mountains and bamboo and things like that. I am currently staying in a ryokan, which is an old school Japanese inn. They're not the cheapest, but it's not breaking the bank either. You know, if you're coming to Japan, these places will run you, 150, 200 pounds a night, not including food, but they are nice for a few days of your trip. And we've been staying in budget hotels and hostels and all those kinds of things, so we splash out a bit. You also get to wear the yukata as part of that. They lend you these robes to wear around the hotel, and of course to the baths and the onsens. This town, Arima, has iron-filled natural hot spring water, so it does come out of the ground and then turn red as the iron oxidizes, which is pretty cool. We're not here to talk about my holiday, though my holiday has been great. So if you want to ask me questions about it, or if you're thinking about going to Japan, or in fact coming to Japan for the world premiere in Tokyo, and you want to say, hey, Pimba, you've been to Japan twice, what do you think? Do drop me a message on Twitter, do message in the comments. But we're here to talk about Into the Mistveil, the first set set in Mysteria properly, and of course the first set being launched in Japan. So the announcement very much focused on this idea of ancestor spirits. They're no longer peaceful, they're no longer quiet, and now we've got these 3 ideas of tiger, snake, and moon coming back into this, embodying the different aspects of those 3 things. So if you think about, what we've already seen, obviously we've already seen a lot of Crouching Tiger, we've already seen a lot of cat-themed ninja cards. So whether or not, the Crouching Tiger theme will finally be realized, that could be the avenue that ninja goes along, right? Is that we finally get a realization of the full Crouching Tiger theme into, what it should be, token generation, going wide, buffs. There is also this idea hinted at in the around the table, the Professor Collab Tournament Center. No, sorry, the Professor Collab TCC box. So whatever it was called, the UPF one, where we had predatory ambush. So it was the new ambush keyword, and that was kind of like this idea of laying in wait like a tiger. And there are hints that there's sort of like a tiger clan that likes to ambush people and stuff. So I wouldn't be too surprised to see that card show its face again, potentially just, as a piece of draft chaff. But maybe ambush as well could be a theme that we see from coming in for ninja as a more sort of defensive, surprise-based ninja. Remember, one of the things that we said at the start of, in the start of Bright Lights, when we saw the addition of block as a mechanic, is that we've got a really serious power creep problem. It is very, very hard to power creep Sink Below and Fate Foreseen, right? You don't want to give, because they're 0 for 4 red defense reactions with a scry effect and a cycle effect, right? It's very, very hard to power creep those. You don't really want to give a class better cards than that, because that's kind of the top end of the limit. Now you could, and there are, limited ways to block more than 4 for 0, as we've seen with Boast, and we've seen with, Steel Street Hoons, or the police card that blocks equal to the amount of Evos you have, whatever that's called in Bright Light. So we've seen limited ways to block above 4 within certain cards with certain restrictions, but it's obviously not desired within the game template that a card is able to block more than 4 for free, right? And the idea that you could print a card that blocks more than 4 for free that has an ability as well as just having that block is kind of a bit of a power creep kind of vibe. And that's why we've seen the addition of block cards. So they don't work like defense reactions. You can't put them in your arsenal for 4 or 5 turns. But the trade-off for that is that they have powerful effects, right? So they have powerful effects like test strength, get yourself a gold. If you're playing Victor, draw a card. We've seen block cards that scry the top card of your deck for if it's an Evo. We're starting to see these powerful effects on block cards filter into the game because the limitations of block means that it's okay to print powerful effects on them without actually power creeping the game too much. So it could very well be that we see block cards with ambush, but because they have ambush, they can, you know, be played from the defense. Like they're distinctly not defense reactions, so they can't be turned off by things that block defense reactions or like Command and Conquer, but they also have ambush. That makes sense. But also we could see the addition of ambush as a keyword onto lots of other non-block cards as well, so attacks and things like that, to give ninjas the ability to block from their arsenal as well as from their hand. Now, one of the things that does for ninja, which is very, very important, is it gives them the ability to basically safeguard themselves against blowout turns, right? Because one of the big problems Ninja has is that their opponent, like Bravo, will come in with a massive blowout turn, and Ninja can't do anything about it because they've got a hand that all blocks 2 or 3, all blocks 2. So if you had an attack reaction with ambush in your arsenal that could be played from the arsenal either as a 0 for 3 or a 0 for 2, or also as a block for 2 or 3, that would do a lot to shore up the weaknesses of a ninja class. And also, and this is important, everything in heavy hitters, most of the good beneficial effects that we see in warrior and things like that will specify this is blocked by an attack reaction, an attack action. So it's actually quite interesting in terms of balance if the attack actions that we're blocking with from arsenal are also going to be turning on all of the warrior attack reactions that check if it's an attack action. That's actually quite a balanced and quite an interesting interaction. So it's, yes, I can block with this attack action from arsenal because it has ambush, but if I do that versus Kasai or Olympia, then I might be exposing myself to hot streak or agile engagement, something like that, right? So that seems to me to be like a very, very nice setup. So prediction of ambush cards, yes. Prediction of ambush on attack action cards, also yes. But I think the trade-off is that there is going to be abilities, powerful, interesting abilities on those cards, and that might be this idea of the tiger represented. What other classes are we going to get? I mean, clearly there is something going on with Mysteria, the Moon, and Spirits and Illusionists, right? Spectral Procession, all of these cards that call out Spectral Tiger, all of these cards that call out Mysteria specifically because they're heavily Japanese and Chinese coded, and they come out in the art very much illusionist, using magic to create these illusions of ancestors and spirits. So Illusionist makes perfect sense given the cards we've already seen with massive Mysteria themes coming through for Illusionist. Plus, we also have the key art for the set, which we've seen so far, which has, what looks like a mirror. Now, I've been joking that it's Prism because her hands don't look completely, they don't look completely dark skinned. So I've been joking that it could just be Prism with a different haircut. It's not what I actually think. It looks like a mirror. It could be a bait. It could be like Ira with white hair. We've seen hints of a character that could be Ira on art in Uprising. Ira is expected to be 200 years old now. If she's still alive, she could have white hair. So it could be Ira doing something. And LSS do love a bait, so you never really know. But I will say that is something that is hinted at. So it could very well be that we get Illusionist and Ninja in the set. Illusionist and Ninja are interesting, right? Because Ninja doesn't directly counteract Illusionist in the sense that it doesn't have a lot of 6-power cards. But what we'll get in the Illusionist, if we do get Illusionist as a set, is likely to be a ward-focused Illusionist. And Ninja is very good at dealing specifically with ward-focused Illusionists, right? So Illusionists that focus on ward 1 on a lot of permanence, or maybe even ward 4. But of course, if you attack for 1 damage, ward 4 still gets triggered by the 1 damage. It just blocks 1 damage instead of 4. So Ninja actually quite good at dealing with an Illusionist that relies on a lot of ward-based permanence, in the same way that Ninja is quite good at dealing with an Illusionist that relies on a lot of small dragons and things like that, but less good at dealing with Spectra-focused Illusionists or things that cost action point economy, right? So not so good at dealing with things that cost action point economy because you then have to give over your go again. It's harder to do your combos, but against things like dragons, against things that require Ward 1, Ninja's actually very good. So those might be our two classes in the set that's nice and balanced, right? What's the third class? It's really hard to say. Right? We just saw Brute, Warrior, and Guardian come back, right? So that's WTR 3 out of 4. We're going to get Ninja again. That's 4 out of 4. Okay, we got Runeblade. We got what did we get in Dusk to Dawn? We got Runeblade, Warrior, Illusionist, and Brute. Okay, so that's not really a sign. We just had a full mech set, so that really leaves us with Wizard and with Wizard, Runeblade, Ranger. Right, we're not getting another Ranger because Outsiders did fantastically well for the Rangers. So really that leaves us with Wizard or Runeblade or a third new class, right? So we could get a Wizard. I mean, there was talk about Moon, Waning Moon, obviously a very key Wizard card that doesn't really belong to any hero, right? I mean, Icelander's key weapon is Kraken's Ether Vein, Kano's Crucible of Etherweave. So Waning Moon doesn't really belong to any hero. So it could very easily be the new Wizard's signature weapon, for example. And we could get a Wizard that just focuses around playing one action a turn, but adding a little bit of arcane to everything they do. You know, oh, you've played an on-attack action, would you like a bonus? Having some go again, ways to get go again, to play two arcane actions in a turn. So not really with action economy like we've seen from other Wizards, but still playing a reasonable amount of arcane damage, more than your opponent's going to want to block in a turn, right, if they have AB 3 or 4. Okay, so we could see that, and that Wizard would struggle a lot into Guardian and other blue heavy decks, but in an aggro meta, that Wizard could still take names, and we've seen that LSS is reasonably happy at the moment to put more polarizing matchups. Now, they did learn from Prism, they said, not to put matchups that are too polarizing, but I think we have seen that as part of their design ethos, they are fine with 60-70% matchups leading in one favor. So if we have an illusionist who just, a Wizard who just auto loses to Guardians, that would be fine, right, on their metrics, right? That would be fine. Okay, so we might have a Wizard. Okay, we might have a Runeblade. We could have a third class. Now, what does that third class look like? Okay, now I'm a Druid simp, so it's easy to come out and say this. If you also like Druids, you know, Tigers, Snakes, and Moonkins, Moon Power, have been traditional Druid staples since classic World of Warcraft. You know, the ability to turn into a snake, the ability to turn into a tiger, and the ability to channel the light of the moon. Through a Loon and even through D&D archetypes, Moon is very closely associated with Wizards. Lunar Beam is one of their core skills. Sorry, with Druids, Lunar Beam is one of their core skills, etc., etc. So a Druid that channels the snakes, the tigers, and the moon could make sense, right? Perfectly could make sense. And, you know, so there are hints that you could get a Druid in this set. Equally, we are going to Japan, and as someone who has spent a lot of time through my time playing Legend of the Five Rings since I was 12 to when I was about 25, 26 and the LCG died, a game heavily invested in Japanese culture, which went from being, you know, problematic, full of, we'll say, American interpretation of Japanese culture to, you know, the 5th edition, which, if you see it reviewed by actual cultural consultants, the Asians Represent podcast have a really good view of Elphaba, where they talk about the bits that are good and the bits that are bad, and a lot of it is good. So my point is that I personally, while being from the UK, have taken the time to learn a lot about Japanese culture, and I do have a degree in theology, if for those of you who didn't know that. So when I say that Japanese culture is rooted in spirituality, spirits, local spirits, the kami with a small c, big spirits like the moon, kami with a capital K, small k, capital K. The difference is that small kami are like the kami of an area. So, you know, you might have a kami of the local mountain or a stream or something like that. And the capital K kami are like the sun, the moon, that the largest mountain in Japan, for example. These really big, like, manifestations of massive forces, right, as well as sort of the kami that represent like ideals like emotions and mercy and wisdom. And then the lines blur a bit with Buddhism too at certain points. That they made an effort to separate that as well in the late 1800s. But we're getting out of the weeds. The point to focus on is that Japanese culture is very heavily rooted in spirituality. And a lot of the fantasy approaches to Japanese culture, I would say rather correctly, recognize that and celebrate that approach to spirituality. And we've seen hints of that already through the illusionist coded cards like Spectral Procession, those kind of things where it seems like there's a procession of spirits. And if you want to know more about that kind of thing, I mean, there's a book called, is there a book? It's called The Night Parade of 1,000 Demons, where it's a famous Japanese story where 1,000 demons of different kinds go on a night parade through a town, and the writer is just describing all the different types of demons that he sees, and all these yokai, these ghosts as well that join them. So, we could very much, if the illusionist doesn't cover off the spiritual for us, we also could see the addition of the cleric class that was spoiled in the Welcome to Wraith guidebook, or some sort of priest class, which is channeling these spirits of the moon and the ancestor spirits and things like that into some sort of manifestation of power. Now, what that exactly looks like, I don't know. And I don't know if they're ready to add a new class to the game. But if they did, cleric is a traditional fantasy archetype, much like druid, which is served by a lot of fans. A lot of people like the cleric archetype, right? So Japan, with its ancestor spirits and its kami, big C, big K, small k, all that kind of stuff, could be the perfect set to introduce some sort of cleric or spirit type of class. Now, if that is done, I hope it is done very, very well. And like all products like this, I hope that LSS has done the right thing and hired at least one cultural consultant or someone who is very deeply rooted in Japanese culture. I think the biggest danger that anyone can do when they come to a set like this or something like this is not to pay undue, not to accidentally do things that are inappropriate in the culture or things like that. And we already saw a little hint of that in the Dishonor card from Katsu, because I think there's a big talk. I don't really think I can do the topic justice. Again, the Asians Represent podcast do a lot of reviews of English content to sell from an Asian perspective, and they are cultural consultants. They have a massive section on the honor, dishonor kind of thing, and the whole, dishonor being a card in Katsu might ask some questions to them. But my point is, assuming LSS is going to do this right, this could be fantastic. Japanese people really like their culture, so a set that celebrates everything in Japan could be amazing in terms of its reception in this country. And also, TCGs are huge here. You can buy, just to put a scale of how big TCGs are in Japan, you can go to like a corner shop or like a knick-knack shop, which sells like everything you need, just on the street, that'll have, like toenail clippers and pouches and iPhone cases and all that kind of stuff. They will have TCG sleeves as well. They won't be like Katana or Ultimate Guard, but they will have TCG sleeves. They will have binders for TCGs, right? That's how penetrated they are into the culture. There are also shops in Japan that are only catered to Fab already. I haven't had the chance to go there yet because I'm on holiday and I'm taking a break from my hobbies as well as work. And I thank my partner who said, hey, we're in a great venue, why don't you sit down and record a video? And I said, okay, that's good. Let's do it with the bamboo in the background. Let's have a bit of a nice vibe. So, I think this is going to be a great set. I think Japan is a fantastic market to get into. I personally love the country. I think when I finish this holiday, I will have spent a total of 6 weeks in it in my lifetime, and I will probably spend more again. I love the food. I also just love the dedication to, sorry, too much chest hair. I love the dedication just to doing things well and doing things nicely. Things running on time, things being organized, the lack of litter and the real sort of like cultural norms about, like for example, not walking down the street and drinking a coffee so you're not going to knock into someone and spill your coffee. There's just loads to love about this country in terms of food, and I'm really happy to see that celebrated in the game through the representation of Mysteria, which is, Mysteria is so Japanese coded, and it does have some other bits in, but it is heavily inspired by Japan, and I personally think that's going to be a really great setting to see expanded on, and hopefully we get some really interesting lore and art and things like that, because it's going to be fantastic. I am not coming back to the the preview in Tokyo. I don't think my wallet could handle it, and I don't know if my work would be too pleased to see me jetting off to Japan. But also, like, I wouldn't feel right doing another 2-week holiday, having just finished a 3-week holiday. So I would just be flying over for the premiere, which seems a little bit too far. So I will be enjoying is it called Into the Mistveil? At my local game store, as you all should. The pre-releases, they're so much fun. And also, should I say, 8 packs for sealed? Something weird is going on there. So we're going to end this video with a bit of a hot take. I suspect this could be a 4 or 5 hero set, class set. I think this could actually even potentially be a 4 class set with very few generics, right? I'm going to put out a reason for this. Fab packs are 14 cards, right? Typically, in a sealed environment, you get 3 packs, 6 packs, 6 packs, 6 packs, which is, any quick mathers for me, 84 cards, right? We'll do that right. For the last set, for what should we say this? For Bright Lights, you got 4 because of the limitations. Was it? Anyway, my point is, they're giving us... I'm trying to remember exactly details about how many packs we got and different packs and everything. The point is, they are giving us 8 packs, right? Which, if our 14-pack limit is, what, 104 cards? 112 cards? Is it? I mean, let's do quick maths, guys. Come on. 80. 8 by 4 is 24. 104 cards, right. 104 cards, but, only 30 cards playable. So you are going to have 74 cards in your pool that cannot go into your deck. That says something to us about the number of classes that are going to be in this set. Is it going to be 3? It's not going to be 3, is it? That really doesn't make sense. If it's heavy hitters, if it's 3 classes with some in-between cards and some generics, it doesn't need to be 8 packs. If it's 4 classes, as we saw with WTR, if it's 4 classes and some generics, doesn't need to be 8 packs, can still be 6. What pushes it up to 8 packs? Is it 5 heroes? Is it 6 classes? Or, here's a potential, I mean, this is just a potential thought to cap out this video. Is this our new alternative to a supplemental set where it has all of the classes, or most of the classes in the game, so 6, 7, each of them is able to channel the ancestor spirits in different ways. So what we actually get, rather than there being different talents or anything like that, everyone has a Mysteria talent. And much like, you know, and all of the cards then are all Mysteria or Air or whatever the talent is called, hyphen Snake, hyphen Moon. And each of the heroes will use different types of them in different ways. They'll get different bonuses if you play cards in sequences or if you play one card or another card. But what if we just get 6 heroes and each of them can use all of the cards in the set, but you might only get 10 cards. Well, no, they'll have class cards as well. Sorry, not all the cards of a set. I mean, they'll be able to use a lot of these cards in the set, but you're only going to get, say, 15 Snake cards, 15 Moon cards, and you're going to get 15 illusionist, 15 warrior, 15 ninja, 15, you know, everything. So if we do some maths, we could quickly see that just having had warrior, guardian, and brute, that leaves open ninja, assassin, illusionist, runeblade, wizard, ranger, 6 classes. We could get all of those. Or we don't get ranger because ranger's already in a good place, and we get the rest. We get 5 classes. It's just a thought. Nothing about 8 packs is normal. Nothing about 8 packs says 3 or 4 classes in the set. It says more. It says that when you open your sealed pool, potentially half of it's going to be unplayable. Because, remember, like, with sealed, they expect you to be able to build a deck out of 30 to about 50 cards. Like, how many cards do they actually expect you to cut for a sealed pool? Normally, you only cut, like, 5, 6, 7... So if you're getting 104 cards and you could only play 30, that means they're expecting you to have 70 unplayables. Normally, when you take away all the cards that aren't your class and your hero, you're only left with about 6 cards to choose from. So does that mean that after all of that 104 cards, what, like 65 or something are going to be unplayable, and the other 40 or so are, and you're going to cut 10. Like, that screams to me a lot of classes, and that screams to me a lot of potential. So I'm super excited. Again, I keep praising LSS for trying new things. Every time they change something like this, I keep asking the question, is this better? I think that's a good question to keep asking. And so far, the answer has been yes. No, to a certain extent, like Dust to Dawn was bad. Outsiders was too grindy. Bright Lights was too complicated. It didn't really work out in Sealed, right? Because it was too easy to fatigue. But then Heavy Hitters comes along, and all of these experiments start to pay off. We have to ask what's next on the plate, right? To me, what's next on the plate, instantly going from arguably your best limited set so far, out of all the sets you've released, into saying, hey, we're doing 8-pack Sealed now. That's kind of spicy. And we'll revisit this when it comes out. We'll say yes or no as to whether it was a good experiment. But for me, I'm happy the experiment is happening. So we're going to go from there. Thank you all so much for joining me for this. This is potentially the last episode of Steelfur Speaks on Tour, though I am going to Florida at the end of March. So I might do one from there. I'll be in Orlando, but it is a work trip. So, if you are at Enterprise Connect, do hit me up. We can have a bit of a chat or a beer. If you don't know what that is, then don't trouble your head, because it's a tech show and I'll be there. So yeah, that's it. I mean, if you know what that conference is, feel free to message me. We can meet up and have a beer while we're there. Otherwise, I will be in Orlando, but I will be working pretty flat out, so I won't be around too much. That's it. I've got one more week left in Japan. I am staying in a traditional hotel with a hot spring bath, so I am going to go and take a hot spring bath right now. Japan's fantastic. Into the Mistveil looks amazing. I really have always adored art and culture from Japan, but in a cool way. I try and do it in a cool way. I try and be polite. I'm not really super weeby. I haven't even been to Akihabara yet, despite spending a few days in Tokyo. If that's your vibe, that's cool. But I don't like anime that much. I like it a lot, but not that much. And I'm not here to go to maid cafes and things. I am here to eat good food and sit in a hot spring and have a nice time. So yeah, if you like this video, like and subscribe. More subscribers always welcome. Hit 1,400 for the first time last week, which is super thrilling. I'd love to hit 2K by the end of the year. I think that's a good goal. Talk to you all soon. Have a great time.